we will go ahead and start. Oh, should probably blow that out. I'm not watching that anymore. Okay, fantastic. So we are all back. So today we're actually going to focus on our breath. Um, because we're starting to get into the change of season, I don't know about you, but I've noticed that a lot of things within me are wanting to shed, to let go, to slow down just a bit. And so our whole practice today is just focused on noticing the shifts that are naturally happening in our nadis, in our pranic body, our breathing body, when we are actually paying attention to it. So for right now, I want you to just go ahead and close your eyes. And I want you to see if you can notice whether your right nostril or your left nostril is more dominant. And by dominant, I mean it's stronger. The breath feels like it's actively coming in and out of that nostril, or maybe it's more easily coming in and out of that nostril if you happen to experience a bit of congestion. And if you're not quite sure, you can go ahead and bring, good morning, Julie, bring one finger or thumb to the opposite nostril and just breathe in through one nostril and out through that nostril. And then go ahead and try the other side and just see if you can ascertain which nostril has more breath easily coming in and easily coming out. And then once you've got that noted, you're going to make your way on to your stomach into crocodile position. So I took a workshop this week with Sandra Anderson. So crocodile position, stack your forearms right on top of each other, stack your forehead on your forearms, and then you're going to separate your feet perhaps mat distance apart, maybe even further if that feels better to you today. And then notice if you want to walk your elbows closer to your chest by maybe about 1 millimeter to 1 inch, so it feels like your chest is propped up just a little bit more. And then you'll just notice what you notice here. I want you to start to begin to notice where you can let more of the body just drop into the floor, where you can let gravity just fall, where you can let the shoulders soften, maybe the jaw soften. Maybe you can start to notice that as you breathe in and as you breathe out, you can make the breath even fuller. And then maybe you might notice that in this position, the breath that you just happen to notice might be changing again. It might become longer. You might find that it's becoming more three-dimensional. So maybe you find it going more into the front body and the back body and the right side and the left side. Maybe you're noticing that your nostrils are starting to even out. There's breath coming in equally through the right and the left, or the left and the right. And whatever you're happening to notice, I want you to just continue to deepen the connection that you're having with the breath. In our practice today, I'm going to lead you through poses. I'm not going to give you so much instruction about what you should physically be doing. I am, however, going to ask that you continue to notice your breath. Our asana practice ideally is intended to help us connect to our pranic body, our breath body, so that we can stabilize our breath, so that we can sit for meditation. And so we're just going to see how perhaps when we're in a symmetrical pose versus an asymmetrical pose, our breath might change. So you'll take your last 3 breath cycles here. And again, just taking the opportunity to observe whatever has shifted since I've been chit-chatting at you and since you've been in this shape. Maybe a part of your body is starting to deepen and relax, and maybe you're not wanting to go on, but we're gonna move on. So At the end of your next exhalation, you'll go ahead and lift your head away from your arms. Bring your hands alongside your ribs and make your way back to a child's pose. Now, when you come back to this first child's pose, you'll let your arms sweep back alongside your feet, so more like an embryo pose. Your knees can be as far apart or as close together as comfortable for you, but you're just noticing what it feels like to have the arms back and feel where the breath is now. Perhaps you might feel the breath more in the low back and the low belly. And maybe the breath is still quiet. Maybe it's a little bit deeper, but you're just noticing what you notice, what's happening in your breath right now. You'll take 2 more breath cycles here, just observing. And then at the end of your second exhalation, you'll go ahead and extend your arms forward. When your arms come forward, go ahead and come to the tips of your fingertips. Actively push your hands down and forward, draw your hips down and back, and just notice if that changes how you're breathing here. Maybe you might feel a little bit more length across the ribs. Maybe you might feel more activation across the armpits. Who knows? On your next in-breath, go ahead and come forward to hands and knees, tabletop position. And then curl your toes under and lift your pelvis up, back, up and back for downward facing dog. And now in our downward facing dog, again, our invitation today is really to pay attention to the breath. So as you do what you need to do to have this pose be stable and engaged for you, my invitation is today to pay attention to what's happening at the belly. Specifically, as you exhale, do you notice that the abdomen can draw back towards the spine and maybe slightly up towards your head? And then when you inhale, that softens and releases. And you'll just take a couple of moments here, noticing if you can drop your ears between your arms a little more. Yep. And if you can just continue to breathe. Notice your nostrils. Is one drawing the breath in more than the other? Is it the same nostril or has it switched? Great. Let's go ahead and inhale and come forward into plank pose. And again, we're still just paying attention to your breath. So as you do whatever you need to do here to press the floor away and engage the low belly and the legs, notice how your breath has shifted. Does it feel more forceful? Does it feel strong on the exhale, on the inhale? Is it both sides evenly? Has the breath shifted in terms of where it's residing in your torso? You're just pausing and noticing what's happening in the breath. Ideally, we want to put our bodies into positions that allow the breath to become a little bit more effortless. So what small shift might you make here to make the breath a little more effortless? On your next in-breath, go ahead and shift your weight forward. And as you exhale, lower your knees down and then chest to the floor. Once you find yourself on your belly, extend the tops of your feet to the floor. And then from here, we're going to take about 5 breaths to come into our cobra. So you'll pull your heart and sternum forward. You'll engage your glutes. And then really the invitation is just what physical muscular actions do you need to do in order to perhaps allow an easier breath into the body while still finding the expression of the pose. And you're just pausing and you're playing. You're noticing what small shifts are happening for you. So you might come up a little higher, you might go down a little bit, you might engage your glutes more or your legs more, you might pull your hands back, but you're paying attention to what's happening in your breath. On your next exhale, you'll go ahead and lower down. Inhale to hands and knees, and then exhale, make your way back to your downward facing dog. And as you come back to down dog this time, again, just check in. How is the breath? Can you press the shoulders down and forward to the hands? And does that create space in the ribs for you to potentially take in a deeper breath? Is the breath even as you come in and even as it goes out? Or is it a little stronger one way or the other. At the end of your next exhalation, step your right foot between your hands. With your right foot between your hands, you have the option here of staying on the ball of your left foot or stepping your left foot slightly to the left and spinning the foot down for warrior one. And then once you've made your adjustment with your feet, you'll either inhale and come up to crescent lunge, or you'll inhale and come up to warrior one. It's totally up to you. Great. And you're going to pause. Now, the invitation is to shape the pose based on your breath. So we've got the activation of our feet, we know that, but where do we need to position maybe our arms and our chest so that we can notice what's happening in our breath? And then notice specifically what's happening in your nostrils. Do you now suddenly feel breath coming in maybe more towards the left nostril than the right? If you're congested, you might feel it. Mine is oscillating a little bit because I am congested, but when I wasn't, I felt it very clearly through the left. And so you're just pausing in your breathing. And again, you're noticing what small internal shifts you need to physically make in order to let the breath be easier, to let the breath be smoother, to let the breath be fuller. At the end of this next exhalation, hands come back down to the mat. Step yourself back to downward facing dog. And then you'll just take 3 slow breath cycles here. And again, you're just paying attention. Where is the breath entering and exiting the body? And that's a dumb question. It's obviously coming through your nose, but is it coming through your right nostril? Is it coming through the left? Is the inhale a rapturous inhale, or is it soft? Is the exhale in a hurry, or is it patient? On your next in-breath, go ahead and come forward into plank. And you'll just take 3 breaths here. And again, where do you need to align the body for an easier breath? Maybe you need to lift your head a little bit. Maybe it's lifting your tail. Maybe it's engaging the glutes. But you're experimenting with what little small actions are needed for you to take in a full round of breath. At this next exhalation, you can either lower your knees down first or just lower your whole body to the floor. Your choice. Nice. And then you'll find your way into a cobra once again. And again, you're experimenting. You're breathing into the shape. So maybe the inhale draws the sternum forward to come up first. Yep, and Julie, you can come as high as you want. You're just paying attention. How is the breath moving in your body? What little adjustments do you need to make for your breath to be supporting the shape of the movement and the movement to be supporting the breath? Go ahead and exhale, lower all the way down. On your next inhalation, you'll come up through hands and knees. And then exhale back to downward facing dog. And again, you'll just take a couple of breaths and you just notice. Where's the breath? What do you notice in your nostrils right now? Has there been a shift from what you first observed? It's okay if there hasn't, but you just pay attention. All right, at the end of this next exhale, we're going to step the left foot forward. And then again, you might stay on the ball of your right foot. You might step the right foot slightly to the right and spin the foot down for warrior one. But once you're set with your feet, you'll inhale and bring yourself all the way up to stand, either high crescent lunge or Virabhadrasana 1. And similar to what we did on the first side, you're just going to notice what small adjustments can you make in order to let the breath be fuller, let the breath be more effortless, and to allow the breath to just really support the shape. I invite you to also check in and notice what's happening in your right nostril. Do you feel the breath coming in more evenly through that breath or that nostril? We just got about 2 more breath cycles here. Nice work. At the end of your next exhalation, hands will come back down to the floor. Step yourself back to downward facing dog. And you just take a moment to pause and take a moment to breathe. And again, check in. What do you notice when you're in a symmetrical pose versus an asymmetrical pose in terms of your breathing? What's specifically happening at your nostrils? Okay. As you inhale, raise to the balls of your feet. When you exhale, bend your knees and walk to the top of your space. When you get to the top of your space, just separate your feet about hip distance apart. And just notice what happens to your breathing here. This is a very introspective pose. So you might observe that the breath maybe slows down a little bit, might become a little quieter. And then notice if you can drop your head just a smidge. Great. And again, you're just making little micro movements in the shape so your breath feels easier. So the channels of the body, the nadis as they're called, become clearer and more open. All right, let's move on. Some of you might slide a block between your shin bones. Some of you will not. It's totally up to you. But from here, we'll go ahead and lift our spine halfway. And then we'll exhale, we'll bend our knees and plant our fingers on the floor. With your knees bent and your fingers on the floor, you'll start to reach your heart forward. And then reach your arms out to the right and to the left like little airplane wings. And then they come up as you sit your butt down and come up for Utkatasana. And then we'll just pause and we'll breathe here. And again, that focus is on where do you need to slightly adjust things to invite in a deeper, smoother, fuller breath. Now, mind you, this is a very activating pose, so your breath is probably already a lot more active than it was, say, in perhaps downward facing dog. But you're just noticing and you're breathing. And we've got about 3 more breath cycles. Do you feel the breath up in the chest? Is it in the ribs or down into the belly? Does it feel like it has more force to it? Does it feel like it has heat to it? I'm just paying attention. Next in-breath, you'll stand up, you'll reach up, you'll look up. And then as you exhale, you'll open the arms out and to the sides. Take a moment to soften the gaze or close the eyes. And then just observe. Is the breath coming in through the right nostril? Is the breath coming in through the left nostril? Which side is more dominant? Awesome. Once you've noted that, gently open your eyes if they're closed, remove your block, and then we're going to turn to face the long edge of our mat. You're probably not going to need your blocks, but I'm going to encourage you to get them anyways. So we'll put them behind us on their highest setting. And then you will turn to face the long edge of your mat with your blocks being behind you. And then from there, go ahead and separate your feet about 3 feet apart, maybe 4 feet, depending upon how long your legs are. And then we'll bring our hands to our hips. Awesome. Okay, we'll start by turning our left toes in and then our right toes to face the short edge of our mat. And for today, I want you to slide your hands down to your greater trochanters. So we're not having our hands at our waist, we want our hands down literally at our hips. And because we're focused on our breath today, we're going to try to keep our spine as long as possible. So from here, you're going to really just push your greater trochanters back towards your left, trying to keep your spine super long. Awesome. If you have a hyperextension tendency, you'll want to slightly bend your right knee. And then we're going to drop our right hand to our right shin bone. If you have the capacity to drop to the right block, great. I do not, so I don't know, but you might. But we're just focused on keeping our spine super long. And then with our left hand on our left hip, you can actively press your left hip down towards your left foot. And some of you will stay right there. We want to keep our right side body super long. So it's super duper long. And the right hand only crawls down towards the right shin as long as we can keep our right side long. And then with your left hand, you might keep it on your left hip or crawl it behind you to touch your right butt cheek. And with the right or the left hand coming to touch your right butt cheek, you notice that you can draw the left shoulder back. And that allows you to lift your sternum. And then I want you to notice what's happening to your breath. Can you take in a full, deep, long breath, especially on that right side? Now, that's kind of funny because on the right side, you only have two lobes of the lung, whereas on the left, you've got three. But give it a shot. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. And now, if you're totally happy here, by all means, stay here. Keep drawing the left shoulder back, keep lengthening the right side body. If you want a little more, you might reach your left arm up towards the sky. And then you might reach the left arm alongside your ears and find this crazy long stretch happening all along the left side. And more is not better. All I'm concerned about is, are you breathing? Fantastic. We've got 3 more breaths here. So we're staying here a little longer than we normally would. What small adjustments can you make to allow the breath to be full, to allow the breath to be effortless, and to allow yourself a sense of, I guess, spaciousness as well? When you're ready, draw the left hand back to the left hip, turn your gaze to the right foot, draw the right hand back to the right hip, and using your obliques, draw your spine back up to vertical. Turn both feet to face the short edge of your mat. Take a moment to pause here, soften the gaze or close the eyes. If you want, you bring a hand and check your nostrils again, or just see if you can see without using your hands which nostril is more dominant. Is the breath coming in more through the right or more through the left? Great. All right, let's go ahead and switch sides. So turn your right toes to the left a little bit. Turn your left toes to face the short edge of your mat. Slide your hands down to your greater trochanter. So they're not at our waist, but they're down at our hips. And so with your hands on your greater trochanters, you'll shift your greater trochanters to the right and see how long you can keep your spine. So it's really a long line. And then from here, you might crawl your left hand down towards your left shin. If you're hyperextension prone, a slight bend into that left knee. And then you'll push your fingertips into your left shin or the block, push the shin back in. The block can't push back, but we hope it could. And then with your right hand, you're really going to draw your right hip actively down towards your right foot. Some of you will stay right here, happy as a clam. Some of you might slide your right hand behind you to touch your left butt cheek. That will allow you to draw the right shoulder up and back. And then notice that you might need to position your head. So maybe you draw your sternum towards your chin slightly towards your sternum. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. How can the left side, that's the underside, how can it stay long as you breathe into that side? And again, you have more lungs or lobes of your lung on this side. So maybe it's a little easier than it was on the first side. You just notice. If you're happy here, stay here. Otherwise, you might extend your right arm up towards the sky. You might stay there. You might reach your right arm alongside your right ear for a long side body stretch. But again, you're just pausing and you're breathing. And you're noticing that as I'm saying that, your legs are working a crap ton. Your obliques actually have to work quite a bit too to keep you here. And you're just pausing and you're breathing. Fantastic. On your next exhalation, the right hand comes back to the right hip. Your gaze goes to the left foot. Your left hand crawls back to your left waist hip thing, and you bring your spine up to vertical. From here, turn both feet parallel to the short edges of your mat. Take a moment to soften the gaze or close the eyes and just notice, where is the breath more dominant? Is the right nostril active? Is it the left? Or are they starting to find a bit of symmetry? When they're finding symmetry, that means our breath is moving more along our Sushumna Nadi, the central nadi, more versus our Pingala or Ida. So Pingala and Ida, they're the right and the left nostrils. All right. Let's slide our hands back down to our greater trochanters for now, so outer hip bones. We're going to start to hinge at those greater trochanters. So keep the whole spine super straight. And once you're about halfway down, you'll release your hands down to the floor underneath you. This would be a great time that maybe if your blocks are behind you and you feel like that would be helpful, you might grab those or you might not. Sorry, Sandy. There we go. And you'll just take a pause here. Some of you will keep your hands on your block. Some of you will keep your hands on the floor. All of you will choose how far you wish to drop your head forward into this shape. And then you just take a moment to pause and you take a moment to breathe. Julie, draw your shin bones towards your face. So stay in the shape. Let's draw the tops of your shin bones towards your face so we don't hyperextend so much. Ah, perfect. There you go. And then from there, I want you to shift over the tops of your pelvis. So those hip bones versus your waist. Yep. Awesome. And then you just pause and you breathe and you pause and you breathe. And you just notice which nostril is more dominant now. How is the breath moving through the body? How is it moving through the spine in particular? As you're ready, we'll walk our hands underneath our shoulders and inhale, halfway lift. Bring a slight bend to your knees, and by slight, we'll say even more than slight. So bend your knees like you're a football player getting ready to hike that ball back to the quarterback. There you go, Barbara. Nice, Sandy. And from here, bring your hands to your hips. Draw your shoulder blades onto your back body, and then inhale and come all the way up. Once you're vertical again, if you're dizzy, drop your chin to your chest, lift your chest to your chin, and just take a moment to pause, take a moment to breathe. Okay, check your nostrils. Which one has the breath more fully, your right or your left? And step your feet together and step to the top of your space. Okay, I think all of you can see me now. So when I say that, I mean you literally can bring your hand to your nostril and notice, because it should be changing. In some shapes, it's easier to notice the dominance. If you don't need your thumb or your finger, because you can just notice it coming in and out through one more than the other, that's good too. All right, let's move on. So if your blocks are still on your space, go ahead and remove those. And then stand in Tadasana at the top of your space. From here, inhale, circle, sweep your arms out and up and overhead. And just take a moment to pause here. How can you push through the legs and reach through the arms to find a fuller breath? What does that do to the chest? What does that do to the shoulder blades? What does that do to your ribs? Our whole purpose of trying to find alignment in asana ideally is to improve our energy flow through the body. On your next exhale, go ahead and hinge forward at your hips, forward fold, Uttanasana. Once you find yourself in forward fold, again, just notice if there are any shifts, maybe perhaps micro movements in the legs or the feet that help you feel like you settle into the shape and the breath deepens in the pose. Awesome. Inhale, halfway lift. As you exhale, bend your knees, plant your palms, step back, downward facing dog. Three breaths here. And again, just check in with the breath. How is it feeling? What do you notice? The more we go along, some of the shifts might become a little bit more subtle. So you just start to notice that as well. Okay. Inhale, come forward into plank. And just take 3 breaths here. And again, what small micro movements help you find a greater sense of ease in the spine to deepen and lengthen and make the breath more smooth. At the end of your next exhale, you'll make your way to the floor, whether you lower the knees first or just lower all the way down. Nice control there, Robin. Once you get down, you'll inhale and come into a baby cobra. And then this cobra might become a locust. So maybe you start to then include the legs, so the feet might reach back and lift up. And again, you're just paying attention to the breath. The height or depth of the shape isn't as important as how you're breathing in the shape. At the end of your next exhale, lower all the way down. Inhale through hands and knees. And then walk your shins together and sit on top of your shin bones for a moment. You can stack the hands right on top of each other and then just soften the gaze or close the eyes and just notice how the breath is here. Okay. Just notice, how do you align the shoulders over the hips, the ears over the shoulders so that your breath changes? And when you do that, how does it change? Okay. So from here, we're going to go into pigeon. And you have the opportunity to enter pigeon from here or to go from downward facing dog. We are going to start with drawing our left shin bone forward. This would be ideal to have your blocks and your blanket at some point in case if it feels like the left hip in this instance is really high away from the floor. So if you're going to enter from downward facing dog, go to downward facing dog. If you're going to enter from hands and knees, we'll enter from hands and knees. The blocks are just here in case if you feel like your arms need a little bit of extension. But you'll bring your left shin bone forward. You'll curl your right toes back. You'll walk your right foot back. Now, if you start to get to this and you're like, Jessica, heck no, this isn't going to work, you put the blanket underneath your hip. You can also put one of your blocks underneath your hip. We're going to be here for a little bit, so I encourage you to use the things that will help you be in the shape. Okay. And then for today, we're going to actually keep ourselves upright for most of it. And that's why the blocks will be pretty helpful. And so I want you to notice specifically what's happening on this whole right side of the body. I want you to notice what's happening in your nostrils and what's happening in the chest. So pigeon, we can hang out in, or we can really be active in it. Like you can engage or curl the back toes under. You can walk the blocks where they're at a position where it feels like your chest can lift. The blanket underneath the hip helps with creating a sense of stability in the pelvis. But you're just pausing and you're breathing, and you're pausing and you're breathing, and you're noticing what you notice. And you find a way to let the heart come forward and up. And maybe you soften your gaze and you close your eyes and you just notice what's happening internally here. Awesome. All right. At the end of this next exhale, you're going to slowly come out of this. I would encourage you to make your way back to a downward facing dog to reset your feet, your hips, your legs, but you'll just take a moment and pause there. And you just notice, how is the breath working? And after you've taken about 3 breath cycles, you set up for the other side. So If you lowered your knees down and you entered from hands and knees, great. If you just step that right foot forward, step the right foot forward. I do find it's helpful to have a little blanket underneath the right hip. It just feels a little bit easier. And then the blocks are there if you have the desire to extend your arms a little bit so you can keep your chest up. And you just pause and you breathe, and you might have your left toes curled under. Like mine are actively pushing back, but I like the way that feels across the front. It's stretching my psoas, which is connecting to the diaphragm, which is why we're upright today instead of folding over. And you're just pausing and you're breathing and you're noticing what you notice. Where is there gripping unnecessarily? Where might you be holding your breath? Our breath is one of those fun things that it really does change based on what we're thinking, based upon what we're feeling. And the more that we can start to observe that, it might give us insight, especially in those moments when we're getting really heated very quickly and don't necessarily know why. And we can just be like, okay, I need to take a deep breath. I need to slow things down. And we're just training ourselves to have the capacity to do that. And so as you take these last 3 breath cycles here, you just notice what you notice. What happens when your breath speeds up or slows down? What does that do to your mind? All right. The end of this 3rd exhalation, you're going to make your way back to your downward facing dog. And you just take 3 breaths. 3 long, full, steady breaths. And after you've taken your 3rd breath, I want you to just notice how your nostrils now. Is the breath more through the right or more through the left? And then once you've noted that, lower your knees to the mat. And go ahead and sit tall on your shins for just another couple of breaths. Fantastic. All right. Moving on. So from here, you're going to swing your butt to the floor. So bring a hip to the floor and swing your legs around in front of you. This is one of those things where you might use a strap, but you might not. Not really so important, honestly. But let's start by opening our right leg to the right. And then we're going to bend our left knee and bring our left heel pretty close to our perineum. Now, our blocks might be useful for us. We might frame our right leg with them. You may not use them. I find that I don't necessarily need them, but you might want them there. We're going to start by bringing our chest to point in the same direction as our left knee. And with your hands framing, I guess, or one hand in front of you and one hand behind you, I want you to push down into your arms and lift your spine up as you look towards your left knee. So we're really rotating our rib cage over our left knee. Your right leg, your right foot should be super active. And now from here, we're going to hinge over our right long leg, and you might at this point lower your right elbow to that block. You might lower it to the floor, but it's on the inside edge, most likely for most of us, of our right leg. Great. Left hand now might come to your left hip. And like we did in that triangle pose, you can use a gentle guiding touch to maybe guide your left hip down, and it just creates this long, fun stretch, especially for you, Julie. You might find this fun across your left hip. Some of you will stay here. Some of you might slip your left hand behind you, maybe to touch your right butt cheek on the floor. Notice how you can then draw the left shoulder up and maybe back and rotate more of your rib cage towards I guess technically the left. Cool. Some of you will stay right here and be happy as little clams. You might just stay here and be totally happy just breathing. Some of you might extend. your left arm up. You might also extend your left arm alongside your left ear. So very similar to what we did in that triangle pose. And some of you at some point may be like, my head is heavy. And so you'll bend your right elbow and support your head with your right elbow. Or with your right hand. Sorry, Sandy. You're like, how am I going to support my elbow with my head? And you just pause and you breathe. And we're just noticing that we're finding this long, long side body stretch happening here on our left side. Some of you might also be experiencing stuff happening in the back of your right hamstring. But the most pressing concern for me at the moment is, are you breathing? How are you breathing? Where are you breathing? What is happening in your breath? And you can make adjustments as you're here to find a place where your breath becomes easier, where it becomes fuller, where it becomes smoother. We've got about 3 more breath cycles here, so you're still adjusting, you adjust. If you found a place that you're happy at, great. Okay, when you're ready to come out, we're going to turn our gaze to the floor. We're going to press down in our right hand, maybe press down in the left hand too. Walk your spine up to vertical. Take a moment to just be centered. Notice what you notice. There's probably like a long length happening on this side, but what's happening in your breath? Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and try the other side. So the left leg is going to open to the left. The right knee is going to bend. We draw the right heel close to the perineum. Again, the blocks are there if you want them. So like they're there. So like if you find that having your elbow on the inside is not going to work, you go to the outside. It's just a matter of what's going to work for you. Okay. And then before we go to that, we're going to rotate our rib cage over to the direction of our right knee. The hands push down into the floor to lift up through the spine. And then keeping your whole left side body as long as you can be, you take that position kind of like we did in triangle pose so it stays long. And maybe you lower your left forearm to the block. Maybe your left forearm is to the floor. Awesome. And then we still have our right hand to contend with. So it might just be as a happy helping guider on our right side. And it's just like, oh, say right side body, hello, psoas, hello, QL. You can lengthen here. And it might just be guiding those in opposition from your ribs. And you might just stay here. This is a perfectly wonderful place to stay. You might bring your right hand to touch your left butt cheek. And if it comes back behind you, you can then maybe draw the right shoulder up and back. And that gives you the leverage to maybe push down into your left rib cage or left elbow to draw your left rib cage forward and up. And maybe you're like, yeah, that's fantastic. That's a lot of sensation. I'm going to just breathe here and you stay here. And that's fantastic. You might reach your right arm up. You might be like, yeah, great. I'm breathing. I'm staying here. You might reach your right hand towards your left foot. And again, I don't particularly care what your body looks like. I do encourage you to find the shape that allows you to breathe fuller, deeper, easier, and smoother. And so you just take a couple of breaths and then you fidget and maybe you try something, you're like, yeah, that one doesn't work. And so maybe you try something else. Our asana practice is really kind of like an experimentation playground where we can really just notice that we can change how we're approaching something to have the same intended effect. The intended effect is to, at least for today, find a shape where you can breathe fully. Awesome. You'll take your last few breath cycles here. And when you're ready to come out, you're going to slowly come out. So maybe you'll bring your hands to the mat to push yourself up, and you'll bring yourself back up to vertical. And you'll just take a couple of breaths and you'll pause and you'll breathe. Awesome. All right, let's go ahead and move on. So we'll bring our legs in front of us. And I don't know when's the last time anyone took a yin pose, but this shape is called deer in yin. So we're going to bring our right shin back and our left shin forward, and we're making I guess, like a figure four with our legs. If you feel like your butt is really leaning over to one side and you would prefer to sit on something, you can do that. Additionally, you can play with where your legs are in relationship to each other. Sometimes if the back heel is closer, that feels better. Sometimes if it's out, that feels better. But sometimes if this one is closer or wider, but you just pay attention where it feels like you've got a firm base. And then we're going to sit as tall as we can. And then we're going to rotate towards our left. Now, once you go towards your left, some of you will keep your hands close to your pelvis. Some of you might walk them further away, but we're trying to find a elongation through the spine. And then once you found that elongation and the twist, if you're happy staying on your fingertips, by all means, stay there. If you feel like you might want to lower your forearms to the mat or the floor, you do that, but you're going into a shape that allows you to explore how you breathe when the spine is rotated. And you'll just take a couple of breaths and you'll notice how this impacts your breathing. And you just pause and you breathe, and you pause and you breathe. And you're really playing the investigative journalist here. So I want you to really notice how you might need to modify the shape for you so that your breath feels expansive. Not so concerned with the shapes today, but more about what's happening in your breath, what's happening on the inside. You've got 2 more breath cycles here. And then at the end of this next exhalation, you'll start to walk yourself out, come out of the shape, and come back to center. We'll bring our legs forward for a moment. Go ahead and soften your gaze and close your eyes, and then check your nostrils. Notice if the right is more than the left is more than the right. If the gaze is soft, go ahead and gently open the eyes, and we'll try the other side. So our right shin will come forward, our left shin will come back. And again, you might need to adjust. My hips are definitely not symmetrical between the sides, so how I am on the right side is drastically different than how I am on the left side, and that might be true for you too. So just notice if you have to adjust that for yourself. And then when you're ready, you're going to rotate your rib cage over to the right. The hands might stay pretty close to your hips, and you can just stay right here. That's totally fine. You might walk your hands forward just a couple of inches. You might walk your hands all the way down to your elbows touch the floor. But like, it doesn't really matter to me what it looks like. I'm more interested in what you're feeling in the shape. Where do you feel the breath? With this slight rotation, do you notice what impact that has to how the rib cage moves as you take a deep breath in and as you take a deep breath out? Do you start to observe how the other muscles in the thoracic spine react to your breathing? I notice for me specifically, I feel things more in my serratus anterior in the rotation than I would ordinarily. What does it do to your nostrils? Has the dominance of breath changed? And you've got about 3 more breath cycles here. And again, if you're fidgeting, fantastic. If you're not, fantastic. How's your breath? Awesome. When you're ready to come out, you're gently going to walk the hands back. You're going to come back through center, and you're going to unwind the spine. Awesome. All right. So we're going to gently come out of this. We'll turn to face the back of our mats with our legs long. This would be an opportune time to start to cover your body if you tend to get cold. Also, I did ask most of you to get a second blanket. So if you have that, that would be great. Make sure it's somewhere nearby. And then slower than you want to, you're going to lower all the way down to your back. So feet towards the back of your mat, heads towards the top of your mat, lower all the way down on your back. So hopefully once you get there, you've got all your props easily accessible within arm's reach. I like that, Barbara. Kick it. And then once you find yourself on your back, just take a couple of moments, or not moments, but breaths to be really still in Shavasana and just notice what this feels like. The seasons are intended to remind us that there are times where it is entirely appropriate to slow down, to turn inward, to pay more attention to the things that cannot be seen, but can only be felt, can only be understood by slowing down, by feeling, by connecting. And so as we turn into that time of the year, amidst all the other stuff that we will have going on, nature itself is encouraging us to really turn inward as well. So at the end of this next exhalation, we're going to move on. So go ahead and bend your knees and plant your feet on the floor. Step your feet in close enough to your heels that if I asked you to touch your heels, you could touch your heels with your hands. Fantastic. And then relax your arms out just a little bit. You'll start to actively push through the feet, push down through your upper arms, lift your hips up for Setu Bandha Sarvangasana, bridge pose. And in today's practice, your arms might stay long against the mat. You might grab the outer edges of the mat. You might interlace your hands underneath you. I want you to push down into your feet. I want you to isometrically draw your feet back towards your face and then play with how you can wrap the shoulder blades underneath you so that the sternum lifts towards your chin draws towards your sternum, and then suddenly you can press into the back occipital ridge of your head, or maybe it's a little bit higher than the occipital ridge, the middle of your head. Push that straight down. And then in this shape, notice how your breath changes. Do you feel the breath more in the abdomen? Is it in the ribs? Is it behind your shoulder blades? Where is your breath? How active are those inner thighs rolling to the floor? Yep. How does that allow you to lift the pelvis? And you're going to stay here for 3 or 4 more breaths. You'll know when it's time to come out because your breath will tell you it's time to come out. So you just listen to that. When your breath tells you it's ready to come out, you'll untuck or unclasp the hands, untuck the shoulders, and bring the pelvis down to the floor. Once your pelvis does drop, walk your feet outside of your hips, let your knees fall in towards each other, and wrap your arms around your body. You just take a couple breaths here, giving yourself a nice, gentle hug. Notice which arm is on top. And then on your next in-breath, go ahead and open the arms and switch which arm is on top. Okay. And you're just checking in. What's the breath doing now? Great. From here, you'll gently unwind your arms. Walk your feet back to hip distance apart. Some of you will slide a block underneath your pelvis. Some of you will just lift your legs straight up to the sky, but we'll take a slight inversion. So maybe pelvis is supported by block, maybe not, doesn't really matter, but we're just going to send our legs up. And you're just going to take a couple of breaths here. Couple of breaths. And just notice, how does the breath change here? Is the breath coming in evenly through both nostrils? Is one still more dominant than the other? Is it the same one that you started with? Has that relationship changed? Maybe it's still the same one, but maybe it's softer. Okay, we've got 3 more breath cycles here. And then again, you'll know when it's time to come out, but when it is time to come out, you'll gently come out of the shape. And when you come out, notice if there's any final shape or shape your body is asking for. So if you were in that shoulder stand, you might want to do a cobra or something to just engage the front of the body. If you were in straight up legs up the wall, you might just take a happy baby. You might find that maybe your breath wants to have a little bit more twisting of the spine to release the spine. You might want to figure 4. You just check in. And if you are making your way already to your final resting pose for today, would encourage you to cover yourselves with that blanket. So if you're already setting up for that, make sure you cover yourselves up so you're warm. And those that are still moving around, make sure if you've done something asymmetrical, you explore the other side. Okay. And those that are making your way to your final shape, there is no rush if you're still doing something, but we are going to be here a little longer than we normally would be. So I would encourage you to really make sure you're comfortable, meaning, weather's starting to change. It helps if the body feels nestled in, feels warm with that blanket, especially since our body temperature tends to drop in Shavasana. It also just feels like a hug depending upon how you wrap that blanket around you. And you just, once you find yourself on your back, you're going to take a couple of breaths. Right? And then we're going to do what's called a kriya. It's a cleansing technique. So bring your attention to your skull. Let the back of the head be heavy. Draw your attention to the shoulders, let them be heavy. The elbows, the wrists, heavy. Bring the awareness back up to the shoulder blades and let the chest, the ribs be heavy. Bring your awareness to the pelvis, let it be heavy, let it fall, let it root. Let the hamstrings drop to the floor. Let the calves melt. Let the heels drop. Let the feet soften. The next time you breathe in, bring your awareness to your nostrils. And just notice the breath entering and exiting the nostrils. Maybe feeling the sense of coolness as you breathe in and heat as you breathe out. As you continue to just make the awareness, well, not make it, but allow it to guide or to connect with the breath, you'll inhale up the bridge of your nose towards the center of your forehead. And maybe exhale, let it go back down. So you'll inhale up the nostrils through the bridge of the nose to the center of the forehead. And exhale. It travels back the path that it came. The next time you inhale, draw the breath up the nose to the crown of your head. And exhale. Let it go back where it came from. Inhale, draw the breath up through the crown of your head. And exhale. Let it go back the way it came from. We're going to change it now. Inhale, draw the breath up through the crown of your head. This time, as you exhale, it'll travel down across the forehead, the nose, the throat, across the chest, the abdomen, the pelvis, all the way down as far as it can reach. And then when you inhale, it comes up the back of the body, the backs of the legs, the hips, shoulders, the crown of the head. You exhale, you go down the front of your body. And you inhale, you come up the back of your body. And this is a gradual process. It sometimes might take a little bit of time to connect with each part of the front body, each part of the back body. You might also notice that it takes a bit of time for it to lengthen the whole length of your spine. Maybe it only gets to your belly button before it comes back up. Maybe it does reach all the way down to the tips of your toes. Wherever you are, you just continue to follow this movement of your prana up and down the spine, down the front of the body, and up the back of the body. I'll leave you here with your breath for a couple more minutes, and I'll let you know when it's time to come out. The next time your awareness comes back up to the crown of your head, relax the technique and just rest in Shavasana. Return your awareness to your breath. As you come back to your breath, just take a moment to check in. Notice if there's any part of you longing to linger in the shape, and if so, please stay here. When you are ready to move on today, we'll roll over to our right side, and you'll just pause there for a couple of breath cycles. And again, on the right side, notice if you notice any difference in terms of which nostril is drawing in the breath more easily, more deliberately. From there, you'll roll your chest more towards the floor. Use your hands to walk your spine up to vertical. And then when you are vertical, I do encourage you to sit on something, whether it's a block, a blanket, pillow, your feet. And you'll take the opportunity to sit as tall as you can. And so with the gaze still soft or the eyes closed down, notice where you can plant your hands so that it feels like your heart space can remain open. Notice what it feels like to have the tips of the shoulder blades, the bottom tips of the shoulder blades in line with the tops of your hips. What it feels like to elongate the ears in line with the tops of the shoulders. To maybe soften any tension around the jaw. Ideally, when the spine is well aligned, the breath becomes effortless. Not that it doesn't take effort to keep the spine aligned, but just that the breath can then flow freely. To make that happen, we sometimes have to relinquish some of our old patterns or beliefs, as well as fortify new ones. We'll just take 3 more breath cycles here. And then again, notice, where is the breath more dominant? Your right nostril, your left nostril, or both. Ideally, our practice, whatever it looks like, is intended to bring us back into alignment, where we're not out of balance, either underperforming or overfunctioning, but just balanced. And our breath is a reminder of when we are in that harmonious state. And we just need to remember that we can trust it to tell us where we might need to make a shift, an adjustment, a modification. We'll go ahead and complete our practice with a collective breath, followed by a collective Om. Guide your hands to heart center Anjali Mudra. For today, let's really press our palms into each other and then slightly lift your hands away from your sternum And notice that as you press the hands in, the shoulder blades can soften and maybe the skull becomes a little lighter. Gently exhale all the breath from your mouth. Take a big breath in through the nose. Audible breath out. Inhale for Om. Join if you'd like. Om. Draw your thumbs to your third eye. May our thoughts be clear. Draw your thumbs to your lips. May our words be kind. And draw your thumbs to your heart center. May our hearts be open. The light, the breath, the awareness within me honors and salutes the light, the breath, the awareness within each of you. Namaste.